Sponsored by Rabbi Shlomi and Mirala Greenwald. This is a Sicha from Likutei Sichos, Chelek Yudalid, Parshas Devarim Sicha Beis, and the topic of the Sicha is that in this week's Parsha we learn a pasuk that seems to be out of place, and there are 4 parts in the Sicha. The Rebbe will, number 1, ask what's the explanation of this according to Rashi. Number 2, present 3 answers and reject them. Number 3, present the answer. And number 4, based on the answer, explain and discuss 2 side points. We already spoke many times that Rashi on the Torah explains every difficulty that arises in Pshuta Shemikra. And that's why if there's a difficulty that there's no answer to in Pshuta Shemikra, Rashi will say Eini Yedea. He won't just ignore it, he's going to say Eini Yedea, because Rashi's quote-unquote job description is to address every single question that arises in Pshuta Shemikra, either by giving an answer or by saying that he doesn't know. And whenever there's something difficult that Rashi doesn't explain, it means that according to Rashi, it's understood so simply that it doesn't need to be explained, or that it's understood based on an earlier teaching of Rashi, meaning it does need to be explained, but Rashi already gave us that information in a previous teaching of his, and we need to apply it over here. According to this, we need to understand the big question that arises while learning the simple meaning of the psukim in our parsha, which many of the Mefarshei Torah address, and specifically Rashi, who is the head of those who explain the simple meaning of the psukim, doesn't address. And the question is, in our parsha, Moshe recounts at length the Chet HaMeraglim and the decree on the Dar Midbar. And then the pasuk says, Im yira ish ba'anoshim ha'ela, hadar hara zeh es ha'aretz ha'teva gemer, basically saying that none of the people of this bad generation will see the good land of Eretz Yisrael. Zulasi Kalev ben Yefune hu yirena gamer Yan asher milei acher Hashem, with the exception of Kalev ben Yefune, who he will see the land because he behaved properly. Then the Torah interrupts the discussion and says, Gam bi isanaf Hashem beglalchem. So this is Moshe talking and saying that Hashem also became angry at him because of the Yidden. Lamer, and Hashem told him, Gam ataloi sov Hashem, you too will not come to that land of Eretz Yisrael. And after the interruption, the Torah returns to the story of the Meraglim and says, Yeshua ben Nun ha'emid l'fnecha hu yavashama v'gemer. Yeshua ben Nun, who stands before you, he will come to that land. V'tabchem asher amartem lavazi yagemer heme yavashama v'gemer. And your children, who you said would be killed, they will come to the land. And so the question is, why does the Torah interrupt in the middle of the story of the Meraglim to tell us what happened to Moshe, as if also the decree against Moshe not to enter the land is because of the Chet HaMeraglim? We know that the pasuk says clearly that the Chet of Moshe that brought the decree against him not to enter the land is the Chet of Mei Meriva when he hit the rock, as it says over there. Yan lo yamantim bi gamer, since you did not trust in me, Hashem said, L'chein lo yisaviyus hakol hazeh el haaretz asher nasati lehem. That's why you won't bring this nation to the land that I gave them. And so the question is, how does it connect to the Chet HaMeraglim that it's inserted over here, and especially since they occurred almost 40 years apart? So how does it get put in over here in the middle of the story of the Meraglim? So now we're going to move on to present 3 answers and reject them, and then present the final answer. So the Ramban answers that Moshe mentioned the Chet Mei Meriva because he wanted to mention altogether the punishments of all those who were unable to enter the land, for it was all because of their Averis. He wanted to mention all of them together, all of those who were punished not to be able to enter the land because of their Averis. And so that's why Moshe is inserted over here, that he too did not enter the land because of his Avera. However, we can answer this in Pshuta Shemikra, because there are 3 difficulties with this answer of the Ramban. The first difficulty is that the psukim before and after this pasuk about Moshe Rabbeinu speak of the Meraglim, And so the question is, why insert the Chet Mei Meriva specifically in the middle? It could be said right afterwards in order to mention Moshe not entering the land together with everybody else. It doesn't have to be put right in the middle. The second difficulty is the people of the Dur Hamaraglim, they passed away before the Chet Mei Meriva. As Rashi taught us earlier, Kvar Meisu Mesei Midbar, Ve'elu Pershu L'chaim. At that point of the Chet Mei Meriva, the Dur HaMidbar already passed away. And so according to that, the words Gam Bi Sa'anaf Hashem Beglalchem aren't understood, since it all seems to be talking about the same generation. When we read the Psukim, so it seems that when Moshe is saying, and who he's talking to, is all the same generation. So how does it make sense to say that Moshe is saying, Gam Bi Yisanaf Hashem Beglalchem? Who's the Beglalchem? Who are these psukim talking about? They're talking about the Dur HaMidbar. But it wasn't because of the Dur HaMidbar. It was because of those that made the whole trouble with the water after the Dur HaMidbar already all passed away. So the word Beglalchem is not understood, according to this explanation of the Ramban. And the third difficulty is this pasuk about Moshe not entering the land should have been written where it says that the Dur Meraglim won't enter the land, and not where it speaks of those who will enter. It's inserted between saying that Kalev will enter and Yeshua will enter. Why is it written among those who will enter? According to the answer of the Ramban, it should be written together with those of the Dur HaMeraglim. When it says that they won't enter the land, then it should have mentioned that also Moshe won't enter the land. Instead, it's mentioned among those who will enter the land, among Kalev and Yeshua. Another answer that's given is, so there are those who explain that when it says Gam Bi Sa'anaf Hashem Beglalchem, it actually refers to the Chet HaMeraglim. And that's actually the main reason that it was decreed against Moshe that Gam Ata Lo Yisov Hashem, that Moshe shouldn't enter the land of Eretz Yisrael. So therefore it belongs over here because Moshe Rabbeinu was punished for the same reason as the Dur HaMeraglim to not enter Eretz Yisrael. And that was because of the Chet HaMeraglim, as we'll explain. Now we're going to move on to explain and support this answer by addressing two questions that could be asked on it. So even though Moshe himself didn't participate in the Chet HaMeraglim, so how can we say that it's inserted over here that Gam Bi Sa'anaf Beglalchem, because Moshe was punished as a result of the Chet HaMeraglim, if Moshe didn't participate in the Chet HaMeraglim? So the explanation is that nevertheless, although he didn't participate in the Chet HaMeraglim, he was punished for the Chet HaMeraglim, since it was caused through him, through his Shlach L'chol Hadaitcha, through Moshe Rabbeinu's sending of the Meraglim. And that's why Moshe said, Biglalchem, because of you, because you did the Chet HaMeraglim, and Moshe Rabbeinu was the one that sent them, so as a result of it turning into an Aveira, and him being the cause of it, that's why he was punished. And regarding what it says that it was because of the Chet Mei Meriva, how can we say it's because of the Chet HaMeraglim? And that's why it's said here. It says clearly in the pasuk that it was because of the Chet by the Mei Meriva, that since Moshe wasn't Mekadosh Shem Hashem, that's why he was punished not to enter Eretz Yisrael. It says it clearly in the pasuk. So the explanation is that he was punished through both things combined, like we find also by Nadav and Avihu, that there was a number of reasons given for why they died, and the explanation is that it's through all of them combined that they were punished. So too over here, it was through a combination of the Chet HaMeraglim, that Moshe Rabbeinu is considered a part of, and the Chet Mei Meriva, that he was punished not to enter Eretz Yisrael. And that's why it's in middle of the Chet HaMeraglim, because Moshe Rabbeinu was punished as a result of the Chet HaMeraglim. So it's part of the Chet HaMeraglim. However, we can't explain this in Rashi because of two reasons. So first of all, besides for question number 3 that we asked on the Ramban, that according to this explanation, it shouldn't be written by Kalev and Yeshua who are entering the land. It should be written by the Meraglim and the Dur of the Meraglim that didn't enter the land. So besides for that difficulty, there are two other difficulties. Number one, the first difficulty is, it's clear in Rashi that Moshe didn't enter the land only because of the Chet Mei Meriva. As Rashi says, Lohidia shaloi hoisa behem ela zu bilvad. And Rashi also says, Ein behem oven acher. So clearly Rashi emphasizes that it was that it was in order to inform them, what it says over there in the pasuk, that this was the only sin that they had, and ein b'hem of an acher, there's no other sin. So this doesn't fit in Rashi. And the second difficulty is, then how can Moshe Rabbeinu say gam bi anaf Hashem, which Rashi says means nismali roiges? How can we say Gambi Sanaf Hashem for just a shlach lecha when he didn't even participate in the Chet HaMeraglim? If it's because of an Avera that Moshe Rabbeinu did, then it makes sense to say Gambi Sanaf Hashem, which means Nismali Reges. Hashem became full of anger at Moshe. But if it's just the shlach lecha that ended up leading into an Avera, so he didn't really participate in a direct way, then it doesn't make sense that it would be Nismali Reges. So clearly it's not because of the Chet HaMeraglim. Because number one, Rashi emphasizes that it's only because of the Chet Mei Meriva. And number two, the Chet HaMeraglim would not justify Moshe saying that Hashem became full of anger at him because of it. So clearly, this is not an explanation that would fit in Rashi. Another answer that we can say is that the Torah places the Chet Mei Meriva near the Chet HaMeraglim to teach us that the Chet Mei Meriva is as severe as the Chet HaMeraglim. Now you can ask, why doesn't Rashi tell us this explanation? So that's over here we have a support to the answer, that Rashi already introduces us to this idea. He does it once before, and it's also once in a later parsha, because it's similar to what Rashi teaches. Lama nismacha Parshas Mrs. Miriam, the Parshas Paraduma. Why is the parsha of Mrs. Miriam, the passing of Miriam, near the parsha of the Paraduma? To tell you, ma karbanis mechaprin af Mrs. Tzadikim mechaperes. Just like karbanis atone, so too the death of tzaddikim, the passing of tzaddikim atones. So we see Rashi teaches us that when two things are near one another, it's to tell us that they're similar. And similarly, Rashi teaches, V'samach Moshe techei chazu. This is talking about the passing of Aaron. Moshe said it near the shibur haluchas, near the breaking of the luchas, leimar, to tell you shekasha misasan shel tzaddikim lefnei Hakadosh Baruch Hu, that it's difficult. The passing of tzaddikim is difficult before Hashem. Kayem shenishtabru by luchas, like the day that the luchas were broken v'chulu. So to here we can say that the Torah places the Chet Mei Meriva near the Chet HaMeraglim, leimar lecha, to tell you that they're equally severe and difficult. However, there are two difficulties with this answer. The first difficulty is that it's not a chiddush that the Chet Mei Meriva is as severe as the Chet HaMeraglim, since the Chet Mei Meriva caused the Chil Hashem in front of all the Yidden, as it says, Yan lo imantem bi lakdisheni le'enei bnei Yisrael, to the extent of the decree that resulted that Moshe couldn't enter the land. So it's not a chiddush that we need the pasuk to put them together to teach us that they're equally severe. We already know that on our own. And the second difficulty is, if the intent is to teach the severity of the Chet Mei Meriva, then it should have mentioned the Chet and not the consequence. It just says the consequence, that Gam Beis Anaf Hashem beglalchem, that Hashem became also angry at Moshe because of the Yidden, but it doesn't mention the Chet. And if we're coming to compare the Chataim and say they're equally severe, then it should have mentioned the Chet. And it would also seem that the third question on the first answer, which we said also exists on the second answer, it would seem it also applies here, that it should have been written by the Chet of the Meraglim and the Chet of the Der Meraglim, not next to Yeshua and Kalev, who did enter the land and didn't participate in the Chet. Now we're going to present the answer to our question. The explanation in this is as follows. The Torah explains the punishment of the Der Midbar, that im yireh ish gamer esa Eretz Teva, that none of the people of that generation will see the good land of Eretz Yisrael. And the Torah concludes, Zulasi Kalev ben Yefuna gamer Yeshua ben Nun, that Kalev and Yeshua were different. However, the Torah separates Kalev ben Yefuna and Yeshua ben Nun into two psukim. It writes them in two separate psukim. And the reason is because even though both of them came to the land, however, when they came, they were different, because Kalev ben Yefune only saw the land and was given a portion of the land, whereas Yeshua ben Nun was Yanchilena es Yisrael. He became the leader who gave the Yidden the land. So according to this, it's understood why before saying that Yeshua ben Nun gamer, hu Yanchilena es Yisrael, Moshe first said, Gam bi Anaf Hashem gamer. Because by saying Gam bi Anaf Hashem, he's answering as a side note. He's just mentioning as a Maimer HaMuzgar, why was Kalev different than Yeshua, even though they did the same thing as the Torah tells us, and therefore the Torah tells us about their reward together. Nevertheless, they were different. So Moshe is answering why they were different by saying Gam B'Yisan of Hashem, and it's being presented over here and inserted over here as a side note to explain this distinction. It's a Maimer HaMuzgar to explain this difference between Kalev and Yeshua, even though what they did was the same, and when they were given their reward, the Torah says their reward together because they were the same. And the answer to why they were different is that since almost 40 years passed from the story of the Chet HaMeraglim, and in the meantime, Gam Bis Anaf Hashem Gamer, Hashem became angry at Moshe because of the Chet Meim Riva, therefore Yeshua will be the one that Yanchileno. So that's why it's being inserted over here, to answer that question. Why are they written in separate psukim, and why did they receive different things? That Kalev only entered the land and saw the land and got a portion, whereas Yeshua was the one that Yanchilena. He divided it among the Yidden and he led the Yidden. The reason is because Gam B'Yisan of Hashem, because during the time of the Chet HaMeraglim and entering the land, when almost 40 years passed, something happened with Moshe Rabbeinu that Hashem became angry at him and he wasn't able to enter the land. So therefore Yeshua was the one that would lead the Yidden, and that's why he was given something extra. Now, regarding the question, doesn't Rashi have to answer this? We said it's only if it's very obvious. Rashi doesn't answer it. So Rashi doesn't have to explain that it's a side note, since we find this idea also elsewhere that the Torah says something as a side note, and the Rabbi gives two examples. And now we can no longer ask that Beglalchem sounds like it's referring to the people he was talking about until now, because it's just a side note. So we asked earlier that Beglalchem sounds like it's all talking to the same people. But the people Moshe Rabbeinu was talking about was the Dara Midbar, but they already passed away by the Chet Mei Meriva. So Beglalchem is not talking to them. So how could it be that he's talking about the Dara Midbar and Beglalchem is about the next generation, not the same one? The answer is because this is just a side note, and if it's a side note, it doesn't have to fit with what was being said earlier. However, there's a question on this answer, so it's not really a question on the main point of the answer. It's about a detail that now is difficult, so therefore it's presented here as a side question, and that is, since this whole thing is a side note, and it's only being said in order to mention that it was decreed on Moshe not to enter the land, so we could understand why Yeshua was treated or went into Eretz Yisrael in a different way than Kalev. So if that's the case, that it's a total side note, a Maimer, a Musgar, so why does it add Beglalchem? Why does it have to say that Gam B'Yisan of Hashem, Beglalchem? It could just say Gam B'Yisan of Hashem, because that's all that matters. It was Gam B'Yisan of Hashem, says Moshe, and therefore Yeshua is going to be the next leader. Why does it have to add the word Beglalchem? It's not telling us the story, that's not the point. It's just to explain why by Yeshua it was different, that he became the leader. And the explanation is Rashi already taught earlier. Bechol mokim shekasav misasam kasav sirchainim. Wherever the Torah writes about their death, it tells us why they died by Moshe and Aaron. Because the Dara Midbar were punished for what they did. Therefore Moshe Rabbeinu requested that what he did should be written, what he did wrong should be written. That it shouldn't say he was one of those that participated in what the Dar Hamaraglim did. And that's why he says, Beglalchem was really because of the Yidden complaining. This whole thing was because the Yidden complained for water, and that led to this entire story with the rock, where Moshe Rabbeinu hit the rock, and then, as a result, he was punished. So that's why it says Beglalchem, because whenever it's mentioned that Moshe Rabbeinu died, and Aaron died, it always says the reason for it, so that they shouldn't be included in the Chet of the Dar HaMeraglim. According to this answer, that this whole pasuk over here of Gam B'Yisan of Hashem Beglalchem is a side note, it's a Maimer Musgar, so now we can understand why Rashi doesn't explain over here on the word Beglalchem what he explains later in Parshas V'eschanon on the word Lamanchem, which is essentially the same word. It says Vayisaber Hashem bi Lamanchem, which is like Beglalchem, and Rashi explains over there that it means bishvilchem, that atem garamtem li, is because of you, you caused it to me. And then Rashi also brings a proof, v'cheinu emer from Tilim, vayikzifu al meimer ruiva, and vayera leMoshe ba'avuram. It's because of them that Hashem was vayera leMoshe. So the question is, how come Rashi doesn't give this long explanation over here? Over there he gives a whole long explanation with a proof. How come he doesn't bring it over here on Beglalchem, which comes first? Our Parshas before Parshas Veschanan. But according to our explanation, that this whole pasuk over here is brought as a side note. So since it's not the main point of what the pasuk is trying to tell us, it's just a side note to understand the difference between Kalev and Yeshua. So since that's not the main point of the pasuk to teach us about Moshe and to bring the word Beglalchem, therefore Rashi doesn't elaborate on it, and he waits for Parshas Veschanan, where that's the main message of what the pasuk is saying, to explain this word of Lemanchem. But over here, where the whole thing is a side note, it's not necessary for Rashi to give the explanation. He's going to say it later, and then we'll already know what it means over here as well.